Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening, this afternoon, this morning, wherever you're coming from. And today we are going to be talking around how to manifest the life we want. Is it too good to be true? Hi, Madara. I can see you in the chat. See you on the call as well. Hi, Janet as well. Sandy, Nahid, Shruti. I can see you. Nice backdrop. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to be talking around manifestation this evening. So let's get rolling here. That should be coming up. So yes, we're going to talk around how to manifest the life you want. Too good to be true. I think based on the story I'm going to share, too good to be true is really dependent on how conscious we are. Because if we're conscious, then it really isn't too good to be true. But if we're unconscious and kind of being led and not leading, then that's where things can go off track slightly. So let's get started. I'm going to go through a little presentation for about maybe 20-25 minutes, and then we'll open this up for sharing. Lead, not leading. Exactly. Yeah. So this is for people who want to discover how to consciously manifest, and for people who want to understand how to make it consistent and want a model of the world that serves them. So we're going to cover the why around manifestations. So this will be my story of how I've been able to manifest for a while, but have I always necessarily got what I wanted? No, I always got what I needed, but sometimes there were bends in the river, which we'll talk around, and gave me what I needed, but not necessarily what I wanted, when there's a way to get both in a glorious combination. And that will be what we cover in the what. Having an understanding of a 3 or 4-step process. So we'll cover a 3-step process and then a 4-step process. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about, if you want further information, then how you can find that information out. So we're going to cover my story to begin with, which I've titled How to Manifest Inauthentically and Move Away from What You Want. Because ultimately that's what I was doing, and that was kind of what got me in trouble a little bit. So what I tend to do with these events is I put a picture and I illustrate the story around the picture. And normally it's a picture associated with me or my life, but this time it's just a simple couple of pictures purely around this metaphor or analogy around the flowing river, which I know you're all familiar with. And what this represents here to me is around rapids in life, where the analogy that we use is the river of life, and we're flowing down the river of life. And if we're not careful, we can end up in rapids, and it will be quite bumpy. But that's ultimately how I would describe manifesting unconsciously. If we're not aware and we're not authentic with our manifestation, then it can end up that we are coming up with rapids, and those rapids are coming and we don't necessarily understand why. And there is an alternative, and the alternative is a more peaceful river and flowing with the bends, and that comes ultimately from authenticity. So I'm going to share my story now with a bit of that context in place. So I've always been ambitious and gone after what I wanted. And I was in the corporate world for quite a long time. I'm just having a look to make sure that, yep, okay. So I was in the corporate world for a long time, and I kind of got hooked by the idea of ambition and being successful and going after these things. And it was going well for me. I was making things happen, and I felt like I was on this path to achievement. But actually, looking back, I realized now that I wasn't actually being authentic. And there was this point in my life at this corporate level where I was presented with a choice. The contract that I was on was coming to an end, and I had a couple of options. Now, first option was to apply for another contract, and the second one was to kind of wait and see what happened next. And I kind of knew that I should wait and see, and that I should embrace the uncertainty in that moment. And I knew that with my heart. But then what happened is my boss ended up getting on the new account, and I was, let's say, seduced with the idea of going on to this other account that was available, and the ambition that goes with that. Oh, it's a great opportunity. It could impact a lot of people. I could add a lot of value, etc. And I ended up going with that direction because my head was telling me all the right things. And I didn't stop in that moment to listen to my heart. I knew it was kind of there, and I could kind of feel the sign that it's not necessarily the right thing for me. But in that moment, I allowed my head to overpower me. So I ended up pushing hard to get on this account, interviewing for it, etc. And I got on it. And all the signs were that actually I've made the right choice here. But then as I got onto the account, I was on from the beginning, and it was a fantastic opportunity. But I now look at it from a different perspective. I look at it as a lesson of me being inauthentic rather than the kind of opportunity of it, because my heart truly wasn't in it, and I didn't realize at the time. So I ended up working hard and hard and hard and hard. And I kept coming up against challenges, constant challenges. And the challenges didn't get easier. They got a little bit harder every step of the way. And so I coped by working harder and working smarter and doing this more and more and more and more, working as creatively, thinking creative solutions as much as I could and doing everything I thought I could do. But then something else would come up, which was my boss going off with stress. So then I became one point of failure for a small period of time. So that ramped up the stress levels, and everything kept coming up against barriers, what's called escalating feedback. And I continued, and then it impacted my health. I went off with stress because I could only handle so much. And it ended up putting me in a particular spot of darkness and just not feeling like at some points that I could cope at all, or that life was even worth living at some stage. And this is all from one decision back a few months prior. And all of it spanned from a decision that was ultimately inauthentic and me not following my heart. And so if I compare that, and that's why I picked this kind of picture of this raging torrent or rapids, because you make a decision with the best of intentions, but if it's not from your heart, then you can really get in trouble. And that's what kind of happened with me. And it looked like it was innocuous, and it was actually a great decision, because there were things along the way that, again, seduced me into, right, okay, I'm going to keep continuing with this because it seems to be getting somewhere. But ultimately, I didn't end up going anywhere. And the comparison piece is this photo here with a river. The river winds and we're on the river. And it's taken us in a direction, but as you can see, it's completely different. It's peaceful, tranquil, and things will come up. There'll be bends in the river, but that's part of life. And when we're authentic, the things that we manifest are of a particular quality that is essentially ease and effortless, because it's what we truly want. And so therefore, it's less likely that challenges will come up. And if they do come up, they will be actually embraced by us as part of the journey. So there's a kind of a lesson that I learned is the more authentic I show up in day-to-day life, the more I can consciously manifest, because if I'm actually absolutely in tune with what I want and I'm passionate about it, then it's going to happen. And the more that I can be authentic, the more that I can surrender to what is going to be, and it will come quicker and faster. So that's a bit about my story. What we're going to go to next is, what are the steps to conscious manifestation? So the classic free way that this is described as is a 3-step process. First, we have a thought. Then we have a feeling associated with the thought. And then the feeling and the thought combined inspire us to take the action. And it's that consistent process, that consistent 3-step process over time, that is going to propel us to manifest the thing that we want. And over time, manifesting those things that we want will then lead us to manifesting the life that we want. That's the classic way. However, I'm going to present a slightly different model, which is, let's add a step in here. So we have thought to begin with. We have the seed that is planted in the idea that we come up with. And then we build the feeling around the thought, gets us excited, gets us engaged, we're passionate about it. And if it's authentically us, then that's where we're going to be propelled into taking action. Now, the 4th step that I've put in here is surrender. And for me, surrender makes the difference from the classic model. Because what we resist persists. And if we let go of that which we are wanting to achieve, then it becomes almost effortless. And I've used the word already, a sense of ease, because we're passionate to go after the thing that we want, but we don't need it to happen. And so for me, it's a 4-step process rather than a traditional 3-step process, which is taught in personal growth courses and is widely available on the internet nowadays. So, thought, light bulb moment, I thought illuminated it nicely. Feeling, because the more passionate you feel about it, the happier you feel and more engaged you are, much more likely you're going to take the action. Taking the action consistently over time is ultimately going to get you what you want. Surrendering to your purpose will allow you to be truly authentic and show up to a degree where things will start to change in your life at even quicker speed than you may ever consider possible. So this is just a tiny slice of this type of work around the concept of manifestation. I could talk for hours on this topic to really go in the depth, but I wanted to focus on this area because it's truly authentic to me. I understand now, based on my story, you may understand a little bit as well why I'm passionate about this. I understand the power of surrender and how thought and action propelled by themselves can move, and it did for me. It moved me in the wrong direction with the greatest of intentions. And then I was in a place where I couldn't surrender because I was stuck, because it just didn't feel right. Whereas with what I'm doing now, it's thought and feeling are absolutely aligned in authentic motion, which means the action, even if I work more, even if I work harder, the action is actually more easy to take, or I can do more consistently for longer because of my thoughts and feelings are aligned. And it allows me to surrender to my purpose because I'm authentic. Just gonna have a look in the chat. Sandy, but thank you for sharing your story. My challenge is the feeling aspect. Do you have any advice? Yeah, great question. Well, I would say it progressively comes over time. I would say take it step by step, because I've had that myself where I've been in my head and my head has overridden my feelings. So it may be, as an example, that you're feeling, but your head is overpowering your thoughts. And this is something that progressive layers of awareness can help with. So maybe consider, and this is off the top of my head, so maybe consider, with presence comes awareness. And then with awareness, we can ask ourselves quality questions. And I would start with simple questions. So, and you challenge with the feeling. So what am I feeling in the moment is a great question to ask. Or another one is, am I thinking it or am I feeling it? Because it's a classic reminder, because it's something I'm still guilty of, where I can get stuck in my logical, analytical, rational thinking process called the left brain. Am I thinking it or am I feeling it? Yeah, because it's just a reminder for us. And if we are thinking it, that's okay. Because step by step, we will get where we're going. First step for me is always awareness, because once we know we're thinking it, we can then choose to be present. And through that choice of being present, we can connect more with our feelings. So I hope that helps. And so we've gone through thought, feeling, action, and surrender. And as I was saying, it's just a small slice to get the conversation started for tonight. So I'm going to wrap up, and then I'm interested to hear from all of you, and especially Janet's comment in the chat as well. So I wanted to give a concrete example of thought, feeling, action, surrender. So the one that is really pertinent for me is around an example of letting go. So to continue my story from a bit earlier. So I was at this point where it was clear that I was in the wrong position, the wrong kind of even career, you might say, because I made a career change. Wrong career, wrong position, out of my depth, not able to enjoy much going on, and then stuck in a loop of overworking to try and compensate. Wasn't the best place to be. Don't recommend it, to be honest, but it's good because in some ways it means if I can get out of it, then other people can get out of it. So how did I get out of it? Well, the first step was to start with self-care, because I had let it all overwhelm me with the amount of work that I was doing. So I was forced to take an act of self-care. And through me doing that, I was able to get myself back on track. And once I was back on track, then I was able to do some deep work on myself. So for me, it was a whole host of different things. To give you a flavor, I did some deep shadow work around myself. What am I hiding from? What am I running from? What am I feeling that I've been disowning for a long period of time? And simultaneously with that shadow work, I also did some deep values work. So the questions I was asking myself was, what secondary gain was I getting from the job that I was doing? What values am I getting? What values am I satisfying? Or what are my top values that I'm satisfying that is keeping me in the position that I am? And one thing I realized was it was ultimately a mixture of significance and certainty. I wanted the certainty of stability in my career, so I took steps to make it happen. I wanted the satisfaction of certainty, satisfaction of significance. So I let my head overrule my heart. And then that combination of that with shadow work helped me understand and assess the lay of the land. Okay, this is who I am. This is where I'm at. So then I was in a position to go back and work effectively because I had something to kind of keep me engaged, and I'd taken some self-care. So I was able to be in a position where I was able to work again. But then what I was finding was, again, it was challenging and challenging and challenging and challenging. Now, not to the same extent, because I'd changed my association to the work via the deep work that I'd done. So it was of a different quality, but what I was noticing was I was just being frustrated and frustrated and frustrated and frustrated. And it got to the point where a friend of mine actually said, "You're frustrated because you don't want to work there anymore. So just hand in your notice." And it kind of didn't really sink in the first time, but it planted a seed in me. It didn't fully hit me, but I recognized enough of that truth in that moment by me being taken through a journey of authenticity through the preceding months, to a point where I recognized actually my heart is saying that's kind of true there. So I thought, right, I'm not going to think, which is interesting to say, right? I thought not to think, but I thought, okay, there's something in this, so I'm going to reflect on it. And I reflected, and ultimately I thought to myself, yeah, I don't want to work here anymore. So what can I do? Well, I thought about it, thought, yeah, okay, hand in my notice. And then I could sense my left brain going on okay, when's the best time to do it? Have I got enough savings, etc., etc., etc. Questions. And then I realized I'd actually had a conversation with another friend in January when I was in this moment of self-care and essentially rehabilitating myself. And I'd said to that person in that moment that by the end of the first 3 months of the year, because this happened in January, by the end of the first 3 months of the year, I'm no longer working here. And then I'd kind of forgotten that I said that. And I was reflecting this night, and I looked at the date, and it was actually the last day of February. And then it occurred to me, right, okay, the reason why this is coming up now is because if I don't hand in my notice tomorrow, then I can't hit my own personal statement of within the first 3 months of the year. And then I thought, right, okay, this is an interesting decision now, because it's either I hand in my notice tomorrow, even though I've only started thinking about it today, really, or I go against my own authenticity, because I've already stated in January that this is what I'm going to do. So I was like, right, okay, I go against myself or I hand in the notice. So I thought, right, can I really do that? Left brain going on a tangent again. So I thought, right, I'll reflect on it. And then I did a little prayer and whatever I needed to do. I thought, right, okay, if I wake up in the morning with an answer, one way or the other, then I'll go with that. And I woke up in the morning and nothing had changed for me. I was like, right, okay, I'm still handing in my notice. Okay, I'll give it till 9 o'clock in the morning because I'm going in the office. Give myself another way to kind of inch out of authenticity. But I went in, started working, didn't feel any different. So I thought, right, okay. So I typed up the email, had it ready to go, got to 9 o'clock, and nothing had changed. Now, at this point, I didn't know what was next. I didn't have a plan. I hadn't applied for any jobs or anything like that. But in that moment, I clicked send, and in that moment, I surrendered. And at that point, I had a choice: either let go and surrender or hold on to it. But there was nothing to hold on to anymore. So I completely let go. And I also felt this sense of relief. It didn't come immediately, but over the next, because I didn't, sometimes you can know, kind of go, oh, I've made the wrong decision. You can kind of feel it. And I didn't feel any different. So I thought, okay, yeah, this is it. This is how things are. This is going to be very interesting how this unfolds. Because I didn't know in that moment. I didn't have any plan or didn't have anything applied for or anything like that. So I let go completely. And within 7 days, everything had come together, which is ultimately encapsulating a slice of the teaching that we've covered today. But ultimately, it can be that fast when you are authentic with what you want. You go after it 100%. Your thoughts, feelings, and actions are aligned, and then you surrender. It can be as fast as 7 days. It can even be quicker. It can take a bit longer, depending on what we're going after. So to kind of wrap up the story, there was a role that I'd applied for in January that I didn't hear back from at all. So I thought, okay, it's done. Didn't hear back. Nothing's happening. And within about 5 days or so of me handing in my notice, I was reached out to and contacted about this role, and had the interview within a couple of days. They were impressed. Had the second interview within a week or so, and then I ended up accepting that job. And through me going through that process, yes, I got the job, and yes, it's a fantastic job, and I'm loving it. But the thing that I love even more than that is the fact that I'm able to be truly authentic, and the fact that I stepped into my full authenticity in that moment, regardless of the consequences. My thoughts, feelings, and actions were aligned, and I surrendered fully. So that's an example of what is possible with authentic manifestation. And I suppose it's also the difference between constantly working hard, working smart, and letting go to an extent. There's a concept that we're all familiar with of by me and through me. And it's a choice, and we don't always make the right choice. I didn't make the right choice, but I made it for what I considered to be the right reasons, because I was led by my left brain. And the way I got to where I am now is just by recognizing, doing the work, and ultimately surrendering to purpose. So that's my example. To learn how to consistently, consciously manifest, you can book a call with me. My website is empoweryourselffully.com/EMF, and on that page you can click to book a Calendly call. You can schedule a call with me if you want to find out a bit more. Alternatively, you can email me at letsconnect@empoweryourselffully.com. So thank you for coming. I'm going to stop sharing and stop